I won't do the fruit cocktail salad. That's disgusting.
Fruit cocktail's disgusting.
No shit. Shall we?
I already did. So.
Oh. Hi, book club members. This is and welcome to, I should say, our 5th Best of Awards, in which we're recognizing the best of 2023. I'm Jen.
And I'm Keri.
And this is Warhammer 40k Book Club, where we read from a crag. This episode, we're taking time to acknowledge the best characters, moments, and books that we read for the book club in 2023. If you've been following our podcast, most of these are going to come as very little surprise and probably should be familiar. Spoiler warning. Due to the nature of our awards, it's almost impossible to be spoiler-free for this episode. We will try to announce the name of the book at the beginning of our award and try to keep them to around 1 to 2 minutes. So if you haven't read a book we're talking about, go ahead and skip just a little ahead to avoid spoilers. Be sure to check out any posts and accompanying podcasts for any books that intrigue you. With that, let's dive into the characters, the scenes, the lines, and the concepts that really wowed us in 2023. As usual, we'll kind of switch between who starts and who does the follow-up award as we go through. Our first category is one of my favorite, near and dear to my heart. It is our favorite bro/romance. This can either be a romantic coupling, a platonic friendship that really stood out to us this year, what have you. Classic examples of bromances would be Uriel and Pausanias, and a classic romance example would be Tona Crid and Dermot Catherine. With that, Keri, who is your favorite bro/romance this year?
Should not be a surprise that it is Caiaphas Cain and Amberly Vale.
As your favorite?
Yes. Wait.
I'm shocked.
No. God, I can't even read. Sorry.
I was looking at the words and I was like, that was your favorite?
This is, God.
We're off to a good start tonight, y'all.
Yep. Okay. Putting the wine down. Apparently,
all right, we'll go in reverse for this one. Your honorable mission is Caiaphas and Amberly.
Amberly Vale. Jeez. Wow.
Our first runner-up
actual is in Leviathan. It'd be Lieutenant Castamon and Baraka.
That one was actually my honorable mention. Or him and Abram. Castamon and anyone really?
For me, it was Baraka because Baraka, the guy the remnant, right? They had been through so much together, and he and Baraka, he's the only one who really understood Baraka.
Very much so. And their relationship was, their friendship, I should say, it's not told to us. I mean, we're told that they're friends, right? But then he did such a good job of showing us throughout that entire book. These two people are very close to each other. They have shared experiences. You couldn't help but just like, heck yeah.
Yeah, it just
this one falls.
Made it even sadder at the end, of course. Because, like, what? I mean, you can't have a good romance in this world. Like, look, why don't we look at your number one? Speaking of, like, you can't have a good romance.
So, what are you talking about? This romance has everything. Uneasy allies to maybe kind of lovers to back to uneasy allies to then again lovers to injecting berserk murder drugs to save him and make sure that he can make it and maybe he'll get servitorized. But if he doesn't, by God, Ursula Creed and Ossian are going to have a hell of a romance from Creed, Ashes of Cadia. This shouldn't surprise anybody. These two hit me so hard in the feels. And yes, if your significant other has never injected you with murder drugs after you've been knocked off of a cliff to make sure that you survive to get back to the ship, are you even in love?
Well, don't forget the other drugs that she injected into him when he's like,
well, yes.
He was like, go on ahead, push the button, blow my head off.
That was an actual bomb, though. I mean, that's just like the promise ring. Like, put a bomb in your head.
And she was like, yeah, it serves two purposes. I just injected you. I don't remember what all was in him. But basically, like, you're going to be fine. We just got to get you to the top of the canyon. And then, well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He might be turned into a servitor. He might not. It keeps the romance and the spice alive. I'm just saying.
Would it be weird if he becomes her servitor?
Okay, now that would just go into like a very Warhammer for like that would be very on brand for Warhammer 40k, but I would also be like, no, ew.
It'd be better to be a servo skull, I think, by then.
Yes, I'm gonna go. That's a hard one. Um, it'll be like the Servo Skull from the Vaults of Terra series. If you love someone, turn their skull into a servitor that
Or,
may or may not still have remnants of its consciousness left.
what about Frater Matthew, his servo skull?
We don't talk about that.
What about the bookkeeper skull?
That's a bad one though. Like that's a bad example of a Servo Skull. Just let's not do that.
I mean, but he had the consciousness in him. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, very much so. It's a floating skull. I wonder why he's murderous. Anyways, moving on.
Whose skull is that? Oh, crap.
I want everyone to know that really messed with me in the Vaults of Terra when it's revealed like what he's hearing in his head versus what comes out, and you're like, oh god, this is a dark universe. I love it.
It is.
Let's move on to your honorable mention.
For
whoever could it be? For your favorite bro / romance.
I thought we already covered that. Yeah, Caiaphas, Cain, Amberley Vale. All right, moving on. I mean,
yeah, and my honorable mention was Castamon and Abram or Baraka. Choose one. He had great friendships, which is rare on 40k.
They're brothers,
Rare.
man. They're brothers.
Brothers! Exactly. Our second category is our favorite quote. These are lines that stuck in our brains either as particularly well written, sassy, generally memorable. I will start us off by saying this was a hard one for me. Pretty much you could do any of the quotes from any time that Belisarius Cawl is talking to Trazyn in Fall of Cadia. You could pick any line from there and be a winner. But I have decided that my absolute favorite from that was from Trazyn when he tells Cawl when they're arguing about the use of the word abomination. And Trazyn says, common use is acceptable if one wishes to be common. It's just the absurdity, and it really captures Trazyn in a nutshell. That like this whole scene, the other one I almost went to was when he was talking about kidnapping Belisarius Cawl, and he's just like, look, Katie would be really poor hosts if they didn't let me take a prize. Like, Katie is dying, my guy. So, but I went with this one because it kind of lodged in my brain as just common use is acceptable if one wishes to be common. It's so arrogant and just haughty and very Trazyn. Really anything that comes out of Trazyn's mouth. You, on the other hand, went with something really pretty awesome.
Yeah, and this one stuck with me. I even said it in the podcast when you mentioned it, and it's something I've been thinking about, honestly, every book that we read. And it's from Longshot. It's when Daria Nevich she finally escapes from the Tau and basically is trying to kill Ceres. And just as she has him, she's like, it was all... And he was like, I was doing this to save my people. And she's like, it was always about you. Nursing a hurt you never should have felt. But you had no right to take it out on my people. And I need that to apply to so much in Warhammer 40k. Like, I get it. You feel slighted. Totally get it. But that doesn't mean that everybody else has to die because you feel slighted. Same thing like in Vainglorious, when Cain realizes all of that material that never made it out to Imperial Guard, and he got really, really upset. Like, how many people had to die, or probably died because you didn't get your shipments out in time?
Right. Well, as we learned from the Vaults of Terra, that was Watchers of the Throne series, just how much the supply lines, how important they are to everyday Imperial life. And yeah, one missed shipment, one delayed shipment can be catastrophic.
Right.
It's a good quote. Yeah, Longshot in general was, I think we talked about it in that podcast too. What a sleeper hit that one was, because I don't think either of us were expecting it.
No. I mean, it's like, oh, yay, Cadians. It's really kind of how we both were. It's like, yeah, more Cadians. And damn. I mean, yeah, I could go on and on and on about this book, but I already did. So just go back and listen to the podcast if you want to hear more about what I have to say.
There was an entire podcast on that one. And if you've been curious about that book, do you recommend? My honorable mention is from The Rose in Darkness, and this is one of those ones that it's not necessarily like one of those like great like quotes where you're just like, oh, well, we've been quoting this for eons. It was more that it was the right quote at the right time. If you've listened to this podcast, you know that Keri and I both really struggle with the presentation of the Adeptus Sororitas. There's a lot of wrist slashing and just general throwing themselves around the room. We are not worthy, constantly trying to martyr themselves, constantly just whinging.
And not in the funny Wayne's World, we are not worthy way.
Yeah, no, not in that kind of way. No one starts explaining the history of Milwaukee. But we really liked Augusta very much. And so one of the quotes is at the very end of the book when her sister superior is talking to her and she says, "You refused your own martyrdom in order to save as many as you could. You were blessed and guided by his light to complete your mission and save the life of Sister Ekamai." And it was just that to me, it felt like, and I'm sure this wasn't it, but it felt like to me such a meta commentary on what we're often shown with the sisters, right? This idea of just, I must be a martyr because it's all about me. It's all about my glory, me getting to the throne, and less about the bigger picture. And that really was what a large part of that book was about, was this idea of you need to save more lives and do as much as you can. Like, you've been given this great gift of this armor and these weapons and this training. Use it. So that quote just really hit me hard when we were reading the book, because it was like, yes, this.
Well, something that you and I both said about the book at the time was that this is what we wanted the sisters to be.
Yes. This is probably one of the first sisters books that's appeared on our book club awards.
Yeah, it's a shame too, to be 100% honest, because I liked a lot of Pilgrims of Fire. And Pilgrims of Fire would probably be up here if there wasn't that whole Repentia thing at the end.
The Repentia thing in general, I struggle with.
I mean, just it's been 100 years and I still want to be in the Repentia.
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay, princess. Yeah, I struggle with that one.
And
your honorable mention.
And so my mouth shut. Anyway, my honorable mention is probably one line. So, Call talking to Fabulous Bill was just so entertaining. Especially how much that Bill just made Call laugh. And honestly, how Bill left it where he's just like, you have something else in here you don't want outright. And Call's basically like, balls. That's bad. But it's when, Fabulous Bill's like, I want to save humanity, by creating my own humanity because, of course. And Call has to make a flippant remark about his wardrobe. Most of the time when people want to save people, it's not to add them to their wardrobe. Sorry, Call's got a point there. It's hard to say you want to save people when you're wearing a cloak of screaming faces. I mean, when Conrad Kurz would want to know where you do your shopping, might want to rethink that.
Right. And Conrad Kurz is not going to mount himself upon the same cross of, but I'm saving humanity.
And actually, that actually puts one in Conrad Kurz's category right there, because at least he's not pretending, right?
It's true. And I think that's always been I like that line as well, because it's kind of a nice, it's not only a flippant remark from Call, to me it also kind of felt like a flippant remark from Haley that I can't talk tonight. Fabulous Bill has really, there's this characterization of, I'm just this benevolent person who wants to save humanity. I mean, I walk around in a flesh skin coat and I've genetically programmed all of my creations to never turn on me. But other than that, I'm just so benevolent.
He's very MCU Thanos, right?
Right. Exactly. You are the monster. Congratulations.
But I'm really not. I'm doing everything I can to save the galaxy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it just, no. It doesn't work for me. Our third category is our funniest moment. Believe it or not, the Warhammer 40k universe is full of laughs and humor, but these are scenes that provide either a much needed laugh because of the book or were so perfectly timed and enjoyable, they just deserve a mention, which I think is what your funniest moment falls under.
So mine is, there's actually two in this book that actually made me literally bark a laugh as I'm walking around the lake in my area. And the first one is when Kane meets the big bad in Vainglorious, the Necron, and he shoots him in the face and the Necron just goes, really? And a lot of it goes to Stephen Perring's rendition of how he says it. But he nails it. He says it in a way I could just see like any, frustrated teenager. Really? Did you just really try to shoot me in the face?
I did.
Honestly, the other part that made me bark a laugh was when I can't remember the Necron's name. Starts with an A though. When he tells Kane, make sure that your pet, referring to Jurgen, doesn't kill my pet. And so he yells like Jurgen, like, hang out with the guy, don't shoot him. He's like, right, sir. Good manners don't cost nothing. I burst out. I mean, I did a ha, like out of the lake, like scared the person in front of me. I'm like, sorry, that's just I didn't see that coming, because every now and then Jurgen's got some good ones in there, whether he means it or not.
Right. Sandy Mitchell remains the funniest of the authors, right? I mean, obviously, Warhammer 40k.
That's hard. Because Mike Brooks is right up there too.
I was just about to say Mike Brooks is creeping in on his throne there. But he's still just reliably very funny. Robert Rath also is creeping up in there too, especially anytime Trazen's involved. I like to see the humor, but you can always, there's something just warm and familiar about Caiaphas Cain's brand of humor. Like, there's just something nice about it that I like as well, and that is, of course, and I also listen to the audio version per your suggestion. It's just great, and the way that they reads that line is excellent.
Really?
And then of course you said this one was smart.
So great.
Just gut reaction. As kind of already hinted, my funniest moment, and it was hard to pick one, but I do think it's probably that last one. It's when Colin and Trazen are bickering. Anytime those two are like going at each other, it's just funny. But I think my favorite scene is definitely towards the end when Trazen, like there's a line in there about how, and this is of course why humanity just can't appreciate the true scope of things. And it's like hour 4 of his discourse. Those two back and forth. And his whole, like, the Pokeball scene that he did. Yes, I know that we saw that before in Infinite and the Divine, but it just, I laughed. It ain't
still funny.
It's still hilarious. I laughed my way, I giggled my way through that entire end scene. It's absolutely wonderful.
Honestly, when he throws out Greyfax, and he was like, this is my last resort, because if I throw this out, it won't ever stop. And I was like, oh my God, is this like a Tyranid? Like, I didn't know. A Tyranid, is it an orc? Like, what is it? Oh no, it's just an Inquisitor.
Well, because the line before he throws it out is, you're not going to like this, which is 100% true. You are not going to like this. Still just wonderful. Just a great scene.
And honestly, and then the Inquisitor just like sees St. Celestine. She's like, I want to interrogate that. Like, I don't think I was supposed to be funny, but I found it hysterical.
Oh, I did too. Because you're in the middle of the literal chaos, and you're just like, oh, no, that. Really, darling? Really? Hers was almost my favorite line when she comes in, and she's just like, my authority in this sector predates yours. Yeah. Like, Oh my God.
There were a lot of lines, but I had to go with the thing that actually made me literally laugh out loud. When something does make you LOL, you have to mark that down.
Oh my God, yes. Which brings us to, we both had the same thing here because just if anybody has ever seen Miss Congeniality, yes, I'm referencing Miss Congeniality, I apologize. But when Michael
That's a
Caine
fun
is talking
movie,
about
sorry.
that 1 year that he lost, and he's like, we lost to a blind mute.
It was
You
a
can't
deaf mute.
beat a deaf mute. You can't beat that. The orcs having a medical conference, you can't beat that. Do you want to tell us about the medical conference, Keri?
Just the fact that they had a conference. And he's like, yeah, I learned some more procedures. I got some more body parts. It was all in all a pretty successful conference. Like, oh my God.
That's funny. The idea that the war bosses send them away just to get them away because they don't really trust them and you might as well just put them all in one place. I have so many questions that add to the humor of this whole concept and this whole scene.
Like, where did they get the idea?
Where did they get the idea?
How did they all come together to agree on this?
Mm-hmm. How many people die?
Then the fact that there's panels, because he talked about presenting about why we need humies to help us with this, and everyone's just like, ew, no.
Well, and when they're talking about like humies and like how, yeah, well, they don't really see the need to save them because they'll just turn their skulls into lamps or something. That in particular was hilarious. That whole concept. It can't be beat.
And learning about how, you can't do the same thing with humies because their insides have to go back in the right places. It's like,
Again, orc science. It's amazing.
it is amazing. Even, gosh, his mentor, when he's dying, he's like, okay, you see this? This is the wobbler. And then there's this. We don't know what this does. Like, okay. As he's poking inside himself.
I love that whole concept. And basically, the idea that Stemma is basically Dr. Frankenstein for this book, it's pretty awesome.
Well,
That whole concept.
You think about it, to be fair, most of the Pain Boys are Dr. Frankensteins.
Yeah.
Like there was that one Ultramarines book that we did not like, Blood of Ix. That Pain Boy was a Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much agreed on that. It works well with the orcs, and that's the best part of all of this is that it wasn't just humor for humor's sake. It actually makes sense within the lore. Like he makes it fit with the orcs, so it's not just like, what do you mean they're going to a oh, it's the Pain Boys. Okay, I'll allow it. Like, just absolutely hilarious. Easily one of my favorite things.
I was like, I wonder, but I'm pretty sure that they don't. The Weird Boys probably don't have their own conference just because they would just. Can you imagine the explosion? Imagine being like a chain reaction.
That's how you get a second rift in the warp.
A Weird Boys conference.
Like, what happened there? Well, it looks like there were like 100 weird boys on a planet. The fact that they're called Weird Boys. I love it. The orcs in general. I mean, it's hard to introduce a thing.
Was smart. He didn't have to get a Blackstone Fortress. He could just throw a whole bunch of weird boys there.
Right. And been like, Joe, get a load of this. Could have had a conference, just like the medical conference. All he had to do was plant that idea.
Yeah.
Play out the idea. We want to have our own conference. I think it would have gone over well, actually. Very well.
Oh, yeah, because I'm pretty sure the orcs would be fine getting rid of the weird boys for a little while.
Yeah. Probably.
Some go boom on the way out. Oh, well.
At least it'd be funny.
Right?
I mean, at least for them. Our fourth category is always my favorite one. It's our biggest, oh my God, scene. Emphasis on all of those words. These were the scenes that had us figuratively or literally with our jaws agape, unable to comprehend the scene that we just read. Do you want to start us off, Keri? Since yours is...
It's a Baraka's sacrifice from Leviathan. It was really when he said, yes, this is how I will die. I was like, but, but no.
But you're not supposed to die, my friend.
Yeah, just like he knows at that point, like, this is what I need to do to take, to save my lieutenant, save as much of this planet as we can. Got to take out the head guy, and this is the best way to do it.
That, I would say the last 150 pages of that book could have been the best oh my God scene.
It reminded me a lot of the movie U571. The scene. If you haven't seen the movie, if you have seen the movie, you know the scene. And I can't repeat the scene because I will cry. Like, seriously, if I repeat it, I will cry. I've told this to like my parents who've never seen the movie. I've repeated it and I've cried every single time. It's a gut-wrenching scene. And this reminded me of that, just without Lieutenant Castamon telling him, you have to do this to save us all. Baraka just knew. And that just made it all the more heart-wrenching.
It captured the sense of, for me, it captured the sense of the end of Wrath of Khan. When Spock goes down into the generator room, because he doesn't have to be told, he doesn't have to be asked. He just knows. He just knows he has to save everyone. And again, that whole last, I think my video hiccuped, so I might have talked over you. I apologize. The last 150 pages of that book could pretty much be described as an oh my God scene. But that in particular, I don't think either of us were ready to lose him.
No. I was like, there's got to be another way. But it's Warhammer 40k. Of course, there's no other way.
No, there's no other way. But there could have been. I'm just saying, like, the authors have control over this. Especially with good characters, well-written characters.
Yeah, but then it wouldn't be a good Warhammer 40k story.
What it's 100% true.
What is our biggest complaint about Gate of Bones?
I hate that you just landed a really good point. For those who haven't somehow have missed us complain about this, the fact that both of those characters live in the end of that book, not happy about it. Not happy about it at all. She needed to die. She in particular needed to die. It's nothing against her personally. It's nothing against her.
I would have understood if he lived because he's a freaking Custodes, right? Totally made sense. Hey, we don't need to get into this again. But just saying, but like that was one of those things like when they made a happy, and doing air quotes for a podcast, a happy ending, it ruins it. Because Warhammer 40k is not entirely a place for happy endings. It's a place for happy endings that make sense, such as Severina Rain.
Right.
Or
Kane?
The Unremembered Empire. There's a happy ending that makes sense. Caiaphas Cain, happy endings that make sense.
And even then, they're kind of like questionably happy. I mean, some of his endings,
they're bittersweet.
Yes, very much so. They're happy for Kane personally.
Because he lived.
Yeah, exactly. And Jurgen lived. And I mean, those two kind of have plot armor on them, but that's good. We're all here for it. If you're actually wanting to have the actual real grim dark in Caiaphas Cain, you're missing the point.
If they ever kill Jurgen, which would have to be after Caiaphas Cain's Last Stand. They decided to do a book after Cain's Last Stand, and they kill Jurgen. I will get on a plane to Nottingham, and I will find Sandy Mitchell. I know that's not your real name, dude. I will find you. I know I'm not going to kill you, but I might burn something in your front yard.
Or at least give you, like, just knock on the door and just be like, I have just one question. Why? And then walk away. It's like, you know what you did.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm going to burn into the yard. Just the phrase, I know what you did last summer.
We're not mad. We're just disappointed. And that hurts worse. Exactly that.
It's supposed to be above this, man. Anyway.
For me, it was kind of a silly one, but it was also like the possibilities. And it also fell into a big oh my god scene because this is from Fall of Cadia. In Creed, Ashes of Cadia, there's the big question of how she got the coat, right? And how it still smells of cigar smoke. Now, I do know that a lot of our listeners pointed out that they had actually read Fall of Cadia before Creed, Ashes of Cadia, which I think was the preferred reading order, which kind of ticks me off
because
that
yeah.
Fall of Cadia was only out in limited edition, and so
Yeah.
the non-limited edition purchasers had to wait for it, which then came out after Creed, Ashes of Cadia.
Well, this is Games Workshop's MO. I could list so many books where they've done this.
There's an entire TED Talk on their publishing schedule.
Mephiston. Sorry.
Can I just come and help? Can I just kind of like... project managers, I'm product, but I would happily project this because if I product, I would fix your search engine because your tagging system is atrocious. Anyways, moving on. For me, it's when they reveal that Trazen has captured Ursarkar Creed. So Creed is not dead, my friends.
Oh, you say he needed a gift.
He needed to have a souvenir from Cadia, and
he had
best
to go
part
home
of
with a party favor.
He did. He even tells Call that he needs a party favor, and he's basically spent the entire book hunting a party favor.
I mean, to be fair, he did get rid of some of his prized possessions out of his museum, so why not a Creed?
It's the least they could have done. So that was a big oh my god.
And I loved that. That was actually my honorable mention. Because I love that because when reading the Minkalesk series and they talk about how he just disappeared. No idea where he went. They assumed he died. They assumed he fell on the planet, but they didn't understand it because so many people got away at the same time. So they were very confused about how he could have just disappeared. Because no one saw him fall in combat. So it was always very interesting. As I always wondered if maybe he did escape and maybe he got caught, because there was that blockade, right? If he was like on one of the escaping ships and then just never made it out of the blockade. So, because that got mentioned in Cadia Stands. Some of the ships are trying to leave and they ran right into the fleets and we're like, crap.
They ran into it. I mean, he could have just been the captain who went down with his ship too.
Right, but
there was so many things.
No one ever saw him fall. So that's kind of cool that seed's been planted for how long now? When did Cadia Stands come out? 2017? Something
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to do there, and of course, you have Trazen. Trazen can do. It makes sense. Again, it fits within the lore that he would grab Creed. That one would be particularly interesting to him. And then it also explains how the coat gets to Ursula. So now we have to ask ourselves, when's he going to come back? Is it going to be 500 years from now, like with Katarina Greyfax? Just be like, poof, there we go. Arguably, when he goes into that Pokeball battle, he could kind of have the same conversation. This one will never stop. You're not going to like it.
Actually, I wonder if Creed will be mad.
Honestly, with Creed, the way that they kind of established him up until that point, I have a feeling he'll be like, okay, this tracks.
I don't know. I wonder if he'd be mad that he didn't go down with the ship.
I think it'll depend. So, because my honorable mention is the revelation of the MacGuffin in Ashes of Cadia. The whole time, what could be on Cadia that could still be so valuable? What could be so valuable? What could be so valuable? Oh. It's basically so that they can replace Cadia, so that they can have Cadia 2. Cadia-er. And,
well, because Cadia is not a place, it's a people.
Exactly. And I loved that scene in general. But that whole speech, everything about it, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is great. But it was a big oh my god, because oh my god, yes, they could absolutely create a new planet. And then it got me thinking that would be something that Trazen could potentially unleash him on, and I don't think he would be angry in that case. I think he'd be like, oh.
No, probably not, but do you think Trazen will?
No, that would actually be not within his idiom.
No, because that's like a perfect
mentality.
That's a great museum piece, right?
Right. Like he would have to need Creed, I feel like, to bust him out of Hawk. Um
Or when he would trade Creed for Call.
right. He would have to have a more better replacement for that. For his antiquities wing. Important people. What's the
I honestly just imagine his whole museum thing being like Night at the Museum.
why can't I think of, was it Hall of Presidents or something like that at Disneyland?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it would be like that.
Just
He
with,
has Clone Grim and Creed.
just with less creepy animatronics.
Yes, exactly. Every now and then, if you get close enough to them, you can kind of hear them move or see them move and hear them talk. It's not creepy in the least. Yeah, that's. I imagine he'll take over Greyfax's little pedestal. Fine. All will be well in the Call Museum or the Trazen Museum. I'm telling you. Which does move us into our fifth category, which is our favorite scene. This is the scene that was either just so important or cinematic that it stuck with us. For me, it's cinematic for my favorite. And we're going to talk a little bit more about this later, but this is actually from The Lion, Son of the Forest. It's the scene when the lion enters the Emperor's fortress. I really liked the idea, the previous scene when he meets the Emperor, when the Emperor is fishing in the river. Great scene, right? But is when he enters the fortress that I absolutely love, because the Emperor keeps staring at him. The old king keeps staring at him like, leave. Don't be here. I don't need you here. I like the idea that somewhere in the warp, a part of the Emperor is essentially trapped and fighting off all of these different things, right? I loved the idea of him fishing in the warp. I thought that was a beautiful imagery. And him sitting in that fortress. I thought that was absolutely amazing and perfectly on brand for him. And just the whole scene, Mike Brooks did such a great job of setting that scene up that as you're reading it, it has this kind of ethereal, dreamlike quality to it. You can picture all of the players. It's very much the lion, very much the Emperor. It's very on brand for both characters. And I just like that idea that the Emperor is basically sitting there like, not yet. There's still stuff he's got to do. But then he's also got a lot of problems going on. There's a great scene, and it has really... I mean, we read that book, back in March, and then I've seen nothing else about the lion since. But you know what you've done. I liked the scene, and it's really stuck with me for like this entire year. That scene in particular. Everything about it. It hit me in the right place.
Probably the only thing of that scene that really struck me was when the lion's trying to talk to him. And he's like, why isn't he answering me? And the Watcher of the Woods says, you're not asking the right questions.
That's a nice little mystery there. What is the right question, right? I do like that idea too, that because you can also, the more and more I think about this, I'm probably way over analyzing this, but I think you can also say that this idea that the Imperium in general is not doing like something in general. He's stuck on this throne. They're not asking the right questions. They're not doing the right things. Like there's something that I feel like there's a question or
because he wants them to
happen.
Unplug them from life support so he can come back to life, like adds in, dogma.
It's not dogma.
It is dogma.
Well, it could be dogma.
Except that I don't see the Emperor playing skee ball and giving the tokens to underprivileged kids.
Probably not. We do see the Golgothan demons, though.
Sure.
Nurgle. Okay. I just want to say, I don't know how you put your scene down with I'm gonna get verklempt. What was your favorite scene, Keri?
Oh, it would be Kel's death scene in Fall of Cadia. And that one hit me hard because of who Kel is, how important he is to everything. And honestly, it was his last words to Abaddon. And now I can't remember what they were because I should have written them down. but the scene, like, kind of like, it really stuck with me. The whole thing.
It's when he has his Barry Manilow moment. Your father's such a failure. Why are you dressing like him?
Thank you.
Or something like that.
Yes,
it's so
yes,
good.
Yes. Yeah.
And the thing is I think in that book, had they had anyone else try to say that to Abaddon, it would not have hit. But with Kel, you're like, yeah, that's exactly what he would have said to that guy.
It wouldn't have even hit with Creed, right?
I don't think so.
No. But Kel had a way with words, and he was very witty. And honestly, like, I think he's a better man than Creed in so many ways. He was kind of Creed's prop, right?
He was the face of the brand.
Yeah. So,
or the voice of the brand.
When I was flipping back through Creed Ashes Acadia trying to find some of my notes, because as much as I keep telling myself I'm going to take better notes, and I thought I really took better notes this year, I did not take better notes this year. God, I need to like tell myself how to take better notes. But I was flipping through it and I got to the part where Ursula Creed was actually looking through the journal, and she got to Kel died today. And she was like, she stopped. She's like, oh my God, Kel was so important to Dad. Yeah.
It goes back and it makes that scene a little bit more powerful too. Yeah, Kel's death hit me hard because again,
Kel's
obviously
death is
everybody
like
gets off
kind
this
of
planet, right?
It embodies everything that Cadia was. His fall was the preamble to Cadia's fall. When he fell, you knew that was it for the planet.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And he was just a great character, and he was such a vital part of Creed. And I think that you can see that because Creed is so affected by his death too.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like his right arm was cut off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just as I lift my left.
Yes.
Yeah. His right.
Your image is reversed. I was like, no, honey, that is your right arm.
No, what's really funny is because I'm used to teaching yoga, I always do the opposites. So I always will use my left and say, raise your right hand. So, because that way I'm mirroring people. So that's what I'm going to say this was. It wasn't that I didn't know which one was which, but anyway.
That's fair. I think my favorite scene was Baraka's sacrifice from Leviathan. That was one of mine.
Powerful.
So powerful. And so because I think I've mentioned before, I have an entire dissertation on why Wrath of Khan is one of the greatest science fiction movies ever made. And that ending is part of it. And it hit, like it channeled that emotion for me, and it hit that nostalgia.
I will say that Wrath of Khan is the only Star Trek movie I've ever liked. So
it's a perfect movie because you don't have to be familiar with Star Trek. They establish who everybody is, like in relationship to each other in the beginning. It's also just a solid science fiction movie from start to finish. It has a great plot, and there's actual consequences to this movie. Anyways, thank you. That was my short
never
version
mind
of
the
it.
fact that the ear things terrified me as a child.
Okay, the ear things were maybe not okay. Like, I'm not here to argue that those were awesome. They weren't. Earwigs. Every time I see earwigs, I'm always like, "Ma, get rid of it. It's going to control your thoughts." Anyways, for a variety of reasons. But yeah, Baraka's sacrifice, which I know we talked about earlier, but it's a powerful scene, and I really didn't want that character to die. I didn't want any of the characters to die, but him in particular, I was like, I mean, obviously he's getting off the planet.
I was actually cool with some of the people on the planet dying.
Oh, I mean, obviously, yes. But I was trying, because it sounds like weird when you're like, well, I didn't want him to die. But, all these other people could die. Who gives a shit? No, I care about all of them as individuals.
Nah.
But Baraka in particular, I was somewhat convinced he was gonna be fine. And it was just a little bit of that one was devastating to me, and it was just a great scene. I mean, in terms of a good write-off for a good character, me gusta. What was yours? Your honorable mention.
It was a Creed's message for Ursula. which is where a part of me was like giggling. So I'm like, where it's a people, not a place.
Right.
But same time, it's a people, not a place. Right?
Right.
So, and to me, that kind of wonderfully tied together, you know, a lot of stuff, because you hear like Ursula Creed, she's got 2 white shields, right? Where she's like, are you really white shields? And the Minka Lusk story, which also deals with the same thing, these brand new white shields that they get that weren't trained on Cadia, but were actually trained in the Cadian way. So she's like, okay, yes, you are Cadian. So the whole thing, what does it mean to be Cadian? Is it because of the violet eyes? We got to now think beyond that, right? So that just kind of all just nicely summed it up for me for this year when it comes to Cadia.
This podcast has a lot more Cadia in it than I think either of us ever would have expected.
Well, this year had a lot more Cadia in it than I think either of us ever expected. Like,
okay, that's fair.
The problem with the fall of Cadia, and I said this, I know, in the podcast, was that it would have been great if it came out like 3 years ago.
Yes, agreed. And I know that our take was kind of a hot take, judging by the comments on that video. I still think the book, it was a little late. I would have liked it a few years previous. I will say, Creed, Ashes of Cadia, that one definitely, like, as soon as I read it, I was like, oh my god, this is my favorite books.
Great book.
Fall of Cadia is percolating well, even though I know that I really only enjoyed like the last 250 pages of that book. Now that I'm a little bit past it, the irritation and slog, the stuff that I was like, man, I didn't really enjoy this part of it, has definitely mellowed with me in that whole ending because it was so good.
I agree. It is one of those that has sat with me in the week since.
And I just keep coming back to it. Mentally. A lot of stuff in there that I'm thinking about. No, I feel that one. But it's weird because neither of us are big Cadia fangirls. And so.
No, but you know what? I have to say, honestly, reading the Minka Lusk trilogy this year, or like the rest of the trilogy, because I've read Cadia Stands, I don't know how long ago, kind of turned me around a lot. And Long Shot. Long Shot brought me around on a lot of stuff when it came to the Cadians.
Right. Yeah, there's I think a lot of authors have done, and you and I have talked about this before, there's kind of the easy route to go with some characters, places, locations, battalions, I guess, armies. Like, there's all these things that you can kind of, like, there's the low-hanging fruit of them. And then there's I'm taking a little bit of a deeper look into this, and I'm going to put some commentary in here, and I think we actually got a lot of books around that side of it that weren't just like, oh, Violet Eyes, very militaristic, go! Hates everyone else, go! A little bit of thought into it.
I think, honestly, that Andy Clark with Steel Tread kind of started that. Even though there was a lot of the book I hated because it brought out a lot of the Cadian stuff that I hate, but I loved the book at the same time.
Right.
But it introduced that dichotomy. Right, with the Cadians.
That was the crack in our shell.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's kind of what started me rethinking the Cadians. Even though it really harped on what I hate about them, it brought a different perspective at the same time. I don't know how else to explain it. I mean, for having a bunch of characters in it that I hated and I still loved the book, well done, Andy Clark.
Right. Well, I mean, in terms of the, like, it got you thinking about, so I felt very much that same way with Nick Kime's Volpone Glory book. Being a huge Gaunt's Ghost fan, the Volpone are dicks. I can't stand any of them. And yet, Nick Kime made a book that made me really like them, and he kept them all arrogant assholes. And there were a lot of people that I would not want to hang out with at a party. But I loved the book. Right? I mean, like, so much good stuff going on with so many of these books. But I was just when I was looking through the awards book, getting ready for the podcast, I was like, damn, if you would have told me that Kate, like, at the beginning of the year, if you would have been like, dude, Katie is going to dominate your awards, I'd have been like, okay.
We can even look at the past couple of years, right? What has been dominating our awards? It's not been Space Marines books. It's been Imperial Guard, Astra Militarum. It's been the Imperial Guard. Whether it's Commissar Kane or the Cadia, we got Steel Tread, we got the Kazarkin, won our best book last year. We both, like I said, we already said Steel Tread, but now we got, the Fall of Cadia and Creed Ashes of Cadia. Long Shot.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. You're absolutely right. Actually, I'm going back through really quickly, looking at some of our best books.
Volpone Glory. So I was thinking of we both really, really enjoyed Volpone Glory.
Yeah, there's just a lot of stuff in here that I feel as though a lot of authors are really starting to flex around with it. Having said that, Leviathan was basically bolter porn, but man, did that get deeper than we were expecting.
Oh, 100%. I was just saying that, you and I both kind of got into this because we love the Space Marines. Was the first book that we started with this podcast, Dark Imperium. You can't get more Space Marines than that. And then the last couple of years has gotten to Imperial Guard, and we've been like, who really cares? But we've loved it.
Yes. I will agree with that entirely. There's a lot going on with the human element in a better way, I feel like, in recent years. I don't know how to explain that. I'm not trying to be like, oh, the books before sucked. I don't know how to explain it.
It's not that they sucked. It's just that our attention was on Space Marines.
Space Marines! Shall we continue along to our sixth category, which is one of the more fun categories, too. Our sixth category is our favorite antagonist. These were the villains we either loved to hate or the villains that we were maybe just cheering for a little bit by the end. Great class.
I put the guys that I hated the most, but because I hated them the most, that means they're very well written.
Fair enough. All right. You want to start us off here?
Gideon Argent. Creed Ashes Acadia. And that's mainly because I did not see this shit coming.
Not even a little bit.
No, so when it turned out he was, because we were expecting the prissy guy, right? The guy who maybe should have been a Volpone, the way he was acting.
Yes. The kind of Cadian or aristocrat. He was I didn't find him prissy. I found him pissy, very haughty, it's nothing personal. I'm just better than you.
Yeah, prissy.
Just terrible. And Argent, the funny thing, and you and I both talked about this with Argent, is that he was such I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
But then once you started to unpeel and unpack all of the conversations, you were like, oh, yeah, definitely.
So like I said, when I was flipping through here trying to find certain stuff, and I get to, like I said, her journal, right? When she reads a part in the journal, and he gets all pissy that she had this journal and didn't tell him. She's like, dear God, what does it matter? It's none of your business that I had this. He's like, you should have told me. She's like, why? Yeah.
It also made him especially after reading Fall of Cadia, I felt like it made him an even better antagonist because her father had Kel. She has Argent.
Whom she thought was her friend.
She thought was her Kel. She thought this man was her friend, and no. And then there's all these questions about for how long, and you can start to unspool and death spiral on that.
Was it just when Reboot called her? Was it years in the past?
You know say?
Yeah.
But yeah, he was a good villain. The best villains tend to be the ones that you were like, I did not see that coming.
Yeah, I agree.
And he falls under that entirely. My favorite antagonist is the most basic decision I could make, but bear with me for a second. It's Abaddon from Fall of Cadia.
It's like the pumpkin spice basic bitch.
Yes, antagonist. This is the pumpkin spice latte of Warhammer 40k antagonists. Abaddon, I just liked his characterization. I like once he comes down onto the planet, how he's just meh. He's just so this is ridiculous. So, why do I have to come down here?
He had one line that almost made my favorite quotes. And it was when he was talking to Blackstone Girl. And he was like, I've disappointed you and I'm sorry. But I have learned, if I've learned nothing else, it's that fathers always disappoint.
Yes. I also liked, and this isn't really, this is the characterization from Blackstone Fortress Girl. Um, the one of the neatest concepts that almost made, but I didn't know how to like fit this into the awards, is still how she sees everyone thinking and like the different ways that everyone's mind work. But the fact that Abaddon's is like a solar system, because that's the level on which he's thinking. He's thinking on a galactic level. Um, I liked how he handled the character. It felt very much in line with ADB's from the Black Legion, Talon of Horus books. It felt very much in line with that, with the next logical conclusion. He's not. I feel like sometimes with some of the Chaos Warlords, people kind of they feel a need to make them kind of petty and emotional, and not Abaddon. He's professional. Very much reminded me a little bit of Thanos, like in actual seriousness. The way that Brolin played Thanos is just this like,
Yes, I'm a professional.
I'm professional. I'm in control of all these situations here. Not even that worried about it. Making lemonade out of lemons.
Right.
With his Blackstone Fortress. I just thought it was a great antagonist. I know. I'm sorry. And then I think we both had the same favorite antagonist for our honorable mention. You want to take it away?
That'd be our favorite guy ever, Fabulous Bill.
From Gene Father. You can't not like the guy while also simultaneously hating him.
I don't like him. I hate him.
But you like to hate him. Like, I think, I don't know how to explain this emotion, but like, you enjoy hating him. Because he's a fun villain. He really is.
I haven't forgiven him for Clone Grim.
I haven't forgiven him for Arian.
Oh, there's that too.
Yeah, that one's still, I want everyone to know like, this whole like thing about the Roman Empire right now that's going around on Instagram. Arian is one of my Roman empires. I want you to all know that.
I mean, I guess you could really blame Fabulous Bill for a lot of things. Like a lot of the Horus Heresy.
Yeah. There's so much with him. And he's wonderful in that book. Awful. Oh, absolutely awful, but also wonderful. And I love the way he spars with Call. He is this dark mirror to Call.
I guess the best thing about him is that he believes the bullshit that comes out of his mouth.
Absolutely. He has all this insight and all these opinions and all of this philosophizing.
We didn't see what he really wanted coming.
No. And the fact that what he did to Primus was not okay.
But he does he does grow them back. All the commenters are explaining, yes, they do grow them back.
Oh, excellent. Great. We didn't see that in the book. It was cruel, and I know that I randomly went on this rant recently in another podcast, but this is the other thing that made him one of my favorite villains, is that I was like, oh my god, he's gonna like claim credit for figuring out the Primaris when he just busted into Call's ship and robbed him.
Yeah, that's
okay,
what he
Bill
does.
Gates. Oh my gosh, he's Bill Gates. Windows humor, am I right?
Oh my god, I love it.
If anyone's not familiar, you should look up Apple, Windows, and Xerox.
Change approved.
History.
If I had a gavel, change approved.
Change approved. Bill Gates.
Oh my
that is
god.
that's what I'm calling him from now on. After this whole, like, he just steals it and he's gonna go back and tell Abaddon, I figured it out. No, you did not. You didn't figure out anything.
But if you think about it, he never figured anything out. Everything he's done has been tinkering with what the Emperor already did.
Right. And then he sits there and rests on his laurels about like, oh, look what I've done. And you haven't done anything, my guy.
I created these new men based on Emperor's blueprints.
Right. Oh, and by the way, they're also encoded to be loyal to me. But I've given them their own free will, except for that whole like loyalty to me thing. You know how it is.
Just
Children.
like the Tao.
Exactly.
You have free
Exactly that.
will.
Except it's not even
You have free will
like
to follow the greater good. But it's still free will to follow the greater good.
yeah, we use pheromones and mind control to make sure you want to follow the greater good, and those who don't get on board get killed. But it's still free will. Greater good, everyone.
I mean, if you want to see what happens when you do fall out of Bill Gates' programming, look what happened when they tried. The new men tried to save Clone Grim.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't take that well, and then he gave Clone Grim to Trazen.
Right. Which, to be fair, is probably one of the nicer ways to go out in the 40k universe.
Well, yes, because he's not dead.
He's not dead. He's just in an endless state of stasis that he may or may not come out of, depending on whether or not Trazen ever needs him in a future battle, because he's unleashed something he wasn't prepared for, or something he wasn't quite prepared for gets unleashed upon him. To be fair,
you know, it would be really fun. Is that Trazen's hanging out in his little pocket dimension, and it's when Reboot has the reunion with the lion, and Trazen's just like,
oh, do they need another brother? Here you go. The weirdest conversation. I'd be here for it.
Yes.
Just want you to all know. Switching from our antagonists to our protagonists, our seventh category is our favorite protagonist. These were the main characters in whose stories we were completely and utterly invested. Mine, this is not even going to be any surprise, was Ursula Creed. I went into that book like, who gives a shit about Creed's daughter? I think I may have even made a joke about that in the episode before we read that one, where I was like, oh, yeah. Great, Creed's daughter. Loved her. Absolutely loved her. I loved what a very strong female character she was, but also how flawed she was, how human she was. She wasn't smarter than everyone in the room. She wasn't tougher than everyone in the room. She was just who she was, and she was a great leader. I really liked her story, and I'm really excited to see more of her. And God, I hope Ossian doesn't become a servitor so that they can go on to have, I don't even know what kind of relationship you would have in the Guard. I mean, the ones that we've seen from Gaunt's Ghosts, none of them really ended well. And I'm still pissed about the Anna Kurth Ibram Gaunt thing. I just want them to have some like little like 5 minutes of happiness. Just 5 minutes of happiness together.
So in oh my God, Nick Kine book, Knights of
Macragge. Those two get the happiest, closest to a happiest ending.
I was like, he's kind of insane, but but they have each other now.
Well, and they said that, look, once the orcs come to a planet, they'll be back. So eventually the orcs are going to be back, and it's not going to go well when that happens. But by God, they'll have at least 2 cycles where they're happy together. And I just want that for her. She deserves that. Both of them do. He can wake up, not be a servitor. They can both get laid, and then one of them can go die in a terrible battle. Because that's pretty much how it goes.
He definitely doesn't deserve to be in a penal legion.
No, and she pardoned him. Like, that was the ultimate romantic gesture she could have made. I'm just saying, she's made a lot of strides put a lot of investment in this man.
It's no giving someone a dagger, but it'll do.
That is like he liked it and put a ring on it.
Oh, okay. I can't believe I just brought that on myself. Anyway.
You did. Anyways, who is your favorite protagonist?
It would be a Sister Superior Augusta from The Rose in Darkness.
So hard to argue with.
Yeah. And of course, it probably doesn't help the fact that I just read like that whole collection of Danny Ware's short stories.
Oh, aren't they good?
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
So like I, was all on board with everything Augusta before then. And then just to see her come in and just take charge and not be a whiny bitch. Like that's my biggest problem with the Adeptus Sororitas is that they're just so whiny. She was not a whiny bitch. She took charge. She doesn't get along with the Canoness at all. The Canoness is kind of a bitch, but she's not whiny. She's just kind of a hard ass.
Yes.
So, and the fact that they were able to kind of reconcile with stuff, as a canon is always like, will you stop making mistakes? Okay, mom. And Augusta, she makes mistakes, but it's fine. She's not slitting her wrists over it. She's like, I will learn and I will move on and we will do better. And she does her best to save as much as she can of this planet. It's just so great. The whole book was just great. I enjoyed every moment of it.
So she's my honorable mention. It was so close between her and Ursula Creed. The thing that I really liked about her that really made her stand out as a character for me was that she questions herself, but not in like a woe is I kind of way. She questions herself in very valid ways. But she also was like, oh man, like I'm not sure about this. You know what? I don't have time to think about that right now though. Like she doesn't let it get in the way. She doesn't let her self-doubt cloud her judgment. And she's just a strong character. Like that woman is just there to fight in the name of the Emperor and will continue to do so. And when she gets the most doubt, as I said earlier, she gets told, hey, look, no, you did the right thing there.
Mm-hmm.
Now go on and keep fighting. Like, I absolutely love her. And Danny Ware's short story collection about her is chef's kiss of just awesome. She's a great character. I'm sure everyone's going to be really shocked by your honorable mention.
They might be. Because it's not... Who else would I have picked? Cypher?
You know what? Good point. Good point.
But it's not. It's Caiaphas Cain. Because he's the hero of the Imperium.
Caiaphas Cain.
I mean, yes, he is...
Caiaphas Cain, hero.
He is the both the hero we need and deserve.
I'll agree with that. Yes, I will absolutely agree with that.
And I just really need a book in the future where he and Reboot meet. I just need that. I don't know how Sandy Mitchell would write Reboot, but it could be fun.
That would actually be kind of amazing. I would love to have like a 2-part book there. You can have like Guy Haley writing the Reboot dialogue and then Sandy Mitchell, right? It just needs to be like an audio drama. That's what we need in our lives.
Oh my God, I would be totally down for the audio drama because Stephen Perring would have to voice Caiaphas Cain. Duh. Be even funnier if we got, I don't know, Caiaphas Cain versus Yarick. Two opposite
Those
ends
two
of the
talking shop.
Yeah, it's gonna be opposite ends of the spectrum.
They could be talking. Bear with me.
All
Be
right.
talking at a conference hosted by Greyfax.
Oh, there we go.
And then the orcs crash it because older Baeli is there and Thraka is just so happy to see him. It would have to be after Thraka had tried to go and banish Angron from this plane of existence for like the 6,000th time because he's so pissed off that he may or may not have killed older Baeli.
You know, I'm here for that.
Telling you. Just, I would be here for this one as well.
It's like,
it was just nice.
I need some at Games Workshop to be actually listening to our podcast.
Right.
I like taking down these notes.
I was just happy to see Caiaphas Cain again. He really is like that old friend that you haven't seen in a while who just shows up and no time has passed at all between the two of you.
Pretty much.
You're just like, aw, Caiaphas. I named my cat Caiaphas Cain. So much I love this character. He's great. All right. Our final category. Well, not our final category, but the one that you've been waiting for. The best book of 2023. The moment we've all been waiting for. These are the books that years from now, I imagine, we'll still be referencing and talking about. Kind of like I do incessantly with the Night Lords trilogy. Actually, we haven't had the Night Lords trilogy drinking game for quite some time.
That is true.
Take 2 shots right there, though. I'm really proud of myself on that one. Keri, what's your best book of 2023?
Long shot. By a long shot.
Hey-o! So, why?
I think I've
And it's
said like
complete
so
script.
much why.
I know.
Yeah.
It
Just- yeah.
was a very
It was
good
the
book.
perfect little package. Never overstayed its welcome. It had really good story. It had really good story elements. It had good villains. It had great characters. I mean, hell. And vengeance, or justice, I should say, was served at the end. And how fitting was it that that asshole's dying last words were, "She's not even Cadian," because that matters. The fact that you're like, we're willing to, kill a fellow member of the Imperial Guard because she's not Cadian and shouldn't be leading you. Okay. And to me, like, that was like the final thing with it. It's like, yes, let's put this to rest with the Cadians. Stop hating the transplants.
I feel as though I decided that one of the reasons that Longshot stuck out so much, it captured the best and the worst of Cadians.
Yeah, because
And had
because
quite
like
a bit of
her,
meta commentary.
because like her buddy Iago was Cadian,
Mm-hmm.
and her squad, the Cadians, stood with her, by her side at that guy's execution. Like, we stand with her.
This idea, again, it goes back to the thing from Creed Ashes Acadia, right? That Acadia isn't a place, it's a people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a mindset. And yeah, you can absolutely have it. Take notes, Space Wolves. And I don't know. Have we seen any other famous regiments that are kind of like that? I don't know off the top of my head. The Volpone, but I understand that. They're all into the like aristocracy and breeding and stuff.
But I don't think you really
was one
have
long
it with
shot
any
with
other regiment, because with the Cadians, because the only reason why you have it with the Cadians is because they lost their planet, right? So it's not like they can just replenish their troops. Their planet's gone.
The Catachan a little bit. But they have more of like a I guess you're gonna learn now.
Right, like in that book, Catachan Devil.
Mm-hmm. Like you're either gonna learn or you're not.
Or die.
Yeah. Then, then it's not our problem either way. So, I kind of like it. Mine was, again, this is, if you've been listening to this episode, the best book of 2023 for me was Ashes of Cadia, Creed. I went into that book like, and ended up loving it. Absolutely loving it. I love Jude Reed's style. I love her dialogue. I loved all of the characters. I thought they were all great. I loved how she described Cadia. I liked that not for once, but it was one of the rare books where the magical MacGuffin really is worth all of the hassle that they have to go through to get it.
God, I was so happy it was not a weapon.
Die.
So happy it was not a weapon.
I think we said this at the time, but if it even hinted at, maybe it needs like a ring to use it. Like if it was somehow tied into the Dawn of Fire with Bucharest's ring, I was going to burn that book. Would have been ashes of that book.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. If it would have been something like that. But I thought it was just well done in general. I loved all of the characters. I was so emotionally invested in this book. Really liked this one, and it was a big surprise and a shock for me.
It was.
Excuse me, you can tell that I've been drinking and it's late.
Yeah, it almost made in my top few. Well, my top 3.
What are your honorable mentions?
The Rose in Darkness and Leviathan. So I would have to say that Creed Ashes Acadia would probably be 4th on that list.
So my honorable mention was Fall of Cadia, shock, and Leviathan. I feel as though, going back to something you said earlier, where our first book was Dark Imperium, when I think of like what I like in a good Space Marine book, Leviathan pretty much had all of it. It reminded me very much of bear with me for a second, it reminded me very much of like a modern version, not a retelling, but a modern version of that first Uriel Ventress book.
I was actually
it's
just
straight
thinking that was like basically like a modern Uriel Ventress.
It's straight up bolter porn. It is unapologetically bolter porn, but the characters are good. You were invested in the squad. You were invested in all of the guys. I mean, how much did we talk about Baraka's sacrifice? It was sad and emotional. It had everything. Had everything I came for. And Fall of Cadia, as I said, it has percolated so well in my brain since we read it.
Fall of Cadia would probably be number 5, my top 5.
My number 4 would definitely be The Rose in Darkness. That was another book that I was excited because it was Dany Ware, but we didn't love the Triumph of St. Catherine. It was just very good. It was exactly what I came for with Sister Augusta. Absolutely loved that book. You cannot go wrong with that one. And we both really liked Leviathan. So now those are our books of 2023, the books that we read for 2023. And because of the way that the publishing schedule is working, we're having to dip into the Wayback Machine.
Best book of 2023, as in it was actually originally published in 2023.
Correct. It's a new book, as it were. Because of the publishing schedule, we have to occasionally dip into the Wayback Machine. So what was your favorite book that was published pre-2023 that we read this year?
It's Caiaphas Cain, Traitor's Hand.
Yeah, same. Was it not going to be a Caiaphas Cain book?
I loved his beef with the Talarn Commissar. That was great.
It was absolutely amazing. It was,
and his tribunal that he had afterwards. It's like, I'll see you at the tribunal after I just saved the universe again. Oh, and by the way, did you see me take down 2 Spess Marines single-handedly? Yeah, that was me.
Loved Traitor's Hand. I thought that was a really good one. Anytime you read Caiaphas Cain, it's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. That was also, I think, the right book at the right time when we read it. So it was, just everything about it kind of hit. It had the right thing. We read it on the heels of the kind of thick Armageddon and right before Pilgrims of the Fire. So it was it was a amuse-bouche of books, if you will.
It was summer reading. It was our beach read.
It was a beach read. And it was a good beach read for that one, too. What was your runner-up?
The War of the Fang.
That one surprised the shit out of me when I saw that on your list.
I know, a Space Wolves book, am I right? Now, there's actually parts of that book that stick out in my head that every now and then just pop in there. Like Bjorn Fell-Handed, falling down a canyon. You know, it reminded me that Chris writes the Space Wolves in a way that I can digest the Space Wolves. He doesn't make me hate them the way I think so many other writers write the Space Wolves.
I like the way he writes them as well. That was almost my favorite one, but I really liked Katie and Blood. I had to put Katie and Blood on there mostly because, as a big ADB fan, that's one of his earlier books.
I think I wrote in my notes as his first book.
Yes. And it's kind of fun to see. You can definitely see the earmarks of the ADB that we know and love, but he's also a little rawer. And it's kind of fun to go back and reread some of those greener books, right? Speaking of Chris Wright and the Space Wolves, when we read that first one that has completely slipped my mind right now. It's the one right before. Yes, it's the one right before Stormcaller. You can see that kind of raw side of them. I really like that. I find it really fun. So I thought that Katie and Blood, that one hit the spot for me. Now, since we're on the heels of the announcements for next year, this one was pretty funny because we have the exact same things for our most anticipated for 2024 or beyond. And the first one is, of course, Morgan Val, Spear of Faith.
Dr. Jude Reed is writing it. That's all I needed to know.
Jude Reed, Sister Sororita. Oh, a limited edition, which looks like it's going to be pretty bomb. You had me at that. You had me at Jude Reed. As soon as she got on the screencast, I was like, yes, whatever you're writing. Yes. Just yes.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, the Big Dacca. Sequel to Brutal Cunning? Yes. Confirmed sighting of Princess. Yes.
Mike Brooks.
In Kimura?
Ooh.
Orcs in Kimura.
What could go wrong? Everything. It's going to be great.
I'm so excited for all of this. Like, you pretty much had me at Mike Brook, Orcs, and Kimura. Literally nothing can go wrong with this.
You just had me at Mike Brooks and Orcs.
Pretty much.
That's all I needed was those first two. Kimura is just like, oh, there's some icing on that cake.
Right, exactly. Not too much, not too little. It's going to be perfect.
Give me some nice
Definitely
buttercream on there. Yeah, just
I was
perfect.
going to say, definitely not cream cheese.
No fondant. No, just some nice
No.
buttercream on top.
Yeah, exactly. Something we all want. Now, let's do another one of my favorite categories, because we talk about this a lot, where we go through and we read all these great books and we love them and we rant and we rave about them, and they hold such special places in our heart, but then we come down to actually giving out our awards, and I feel like there's like, I liked this book, it just didn't quite make the cut. What was the biggest book in here tonight that you just didn't discuss as much as you would have liked to?
I didn't discuss it at all, and that'd be War Boss. And I love that book, man. There are so many parts of that book I think about all the time, especially with that poor soldier and the commissar that killed him without even asking questions, really.
Commissarial,
Right.
for being honest. Yeah, that's one that, because as we're just talking about the Big Daka, it was so fun. It didn't quite.
It was chaos. It was so much chaos, and the ending was chaos, and the fact that this weird boy just all manipulated all of them to basically activate, a portal, and that one squig just ends up right with our favorite Uthak Blackhawk.
Yep.
So, which I think is going to be a nice segue into the big Daka, right? Because it was a portal.
Yep. Exactly. That was what. So when they revealed the Big Daka, that was the first thing I thought. Is I was like, oh, that brings it back to War Boss.
Yep, you're going to find that nice little webway portal right to Komara.
And chaos will ensue.
And it'll be delightful.
Joke's on you, Drukari. They're into this. Actually, not Drukari. Like, would even the Drukari at some point be like, this is boring. This bores me. I don't know. Maybe. For me, the biggest book is, and I have to put, because Keri and I actually talked about this before the podcast, because she was like, you actually did talk about this one, but let me explain. It's The Lion, Son of the Forest. And it's because, yes, I talked about that one scene, but I loved this book so much. I wish I could have talked about it more. Like, I feel as though, I mean, again, I loved it. I absolutely love this book. It lives rent-free in my head. Just like you with War Boss, I think about it so much. And I think really the other thing about it is the fact that we've not seen any other books in the Black Library with the lion. It's like it came out in March and, oh my God, he's back. And we're not going to talk about him for the next 9 months.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why it's in here tonight. I think it's not just that I didn't get to talk about it more. I think that I didn't get to talk about the lion in general more. Like, I would have expected to have had more to talk about with him than what I did. So that's kind of what, as you drink out of your Dark Angel's cup. Yeah, that was the one that kind of, it surprised me a little bit. I wanted to be able to talk about it a little bit more. Your runner-up surprised me.
That was one of those books that the more I thought about it, the more I did not like it. And I think it's just that I don't like the way Mike Brooks writes The Lion or the Dark Angels. I liked so many of the ways he writes things, but I just did not like how he wrote The Lion. I guess, and maybe a part of me is like, I really wish Gav Thorpe wrote it, because I think Gav Thorpe understands the Dark Angels better than anybody else. Probably with Phil Kelly as a close second. But
that's fair. What about your runner-up? This one did surprise me. I actually forgot we read this one this year.
Witchbringer. There's a lot to that book in that just really delving into what it means to be a sanctioned psyker, because it really delved so much more deeply into that. And she used to be a soldier. Talked about how, wasted away she was. She used to be a soldier, full of muscle. And ever since they tapped her as being a psyker, made her use her powers, it's destroyed her body. Her reunion with her old teammates, and how they all reacted to her, and how she has this one assumption about all of them that's not even correct. And again, her assumptions, well, I've been trained to this, I know what I'm doing. Her assumptions about what's really going on, none of that was correct. So it's all a lesson, and a lot in, just, making these assumptions about psychers, about what people feel about psychers. Because that was what the whole book was everyone making different assumptions about the situation.
Right. Very much so. There was a lot about, I think we talked once before about how a lot of these Imperial Guard books are kind of squig in some type of pieces of lore bolstering. And I think that was this whole idea of, this is how fundamentally your life changes, and how kind of unpleasant it is to be a sanctioned psyker. And the idea that all of her friends were suddenly not really her friends anymore. And Witchbringer, that was a really good book too. And I felt really awful that I forgot we read this book this year.
Because it was our very first book that we read this year. So that's one problem with those books that we read at the beginning of the year. They get lost in the shuffle.
They really do.
But I also feel that they release a lot of their best books near the end, like Kazarkin.
I would agree with
last year, and then all these Cadian books at the end this year.
I would agree with that. Yeah, they do tend to do that. They do tend to pack a punch at the end there. Assassinorum Kingmaker came out in October, November of last year. Infinite and the Divine came out in December of the year previous. It was the last book we read. They do tend to kind of movies gearing up for the Oscar season.
Yes.
We're the Oscars of the Black Library, I'm just saying.
Or think about video games, right? When are all the best games coming out? It's always in October, November.
Right before the holidays. Right before the VGAs. Yep, I feel it. My runner-up is also an Imperial Guard book. It's Long Shot. I was looking through yours and your awards, and the whole time I was oh god, yeah, I did like that in Long Shot. Oh, I did like that in Long Shot. It was up there for me. It fell under the surprise and delight category. Absolutely enjoyed it. Absolutely would recommend it. It just didn't quite make it up on my list. I would have liked to have talked more about it. It just didn't.
No, there was a lot of good stuff this year.
We did have a lot of good stuff this year, and this is our 5th one of these, which is super exciting. And I go back and I look at it's hard because 2019 might have been the hardest year that we had. Apocalypse and Shroud of Night, and a bunch of other stuff that we read.
I'm sure Apocalypse won that year, though, right?
Oh yeah, Shroud of Night was the second, and that was a hard one. Yeah, this was we've had some difficult years. This one was also hard. So, but yeah, nothing surely should have been surprised. If we talked about any books that you hadn't heard, you should definitely listen to them. And we're gonna dive into 2024, Dawn of Fire, which was unsurprisingly missing from any of this list.
Yeah, there was one other book that was really missing from this list. Oh, something about flesh terrors.
Sorry, what?
Yeah. So, actually, one book that I almost mentioned was the Angron book.
Yeah, that one, that was one. I will say I really enjoyed. I enjoyed reading it at the time, but as we were going through for awards, nope. Didn't even come up on there.
It actually almost made one of my top quotes.
Really? Go on.
Well, I don't have my notes up here with me, but
Well, you suck.
basically it was something along the lines of that the Primarchs were made to be extraordinary. So when they broke in ways that mankind could never conceive.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And I actually thought about it for the bromance between Lotara and her ship.
Oh my god. That's just a straight up that falls in both categories if we're being honest. Did you read The Rose Watered with Blood?
No.
I read that one. There's a short story where it talks about her very strange relationship with the Conqueror. Not like in a creepy weird way, like kind of a creepy weird way, but in like a way where you're just like, okay, that's chaos, Carl.
Like Neon Genesis Evangelion creepy weird way?
No, nothing's that creepy. Literally nothing's that creepy. Why? What? Why would you do that?
Because they have a really weird relationship with their mechs.
Oh. Yeah, no, not quite that weird. I thought you said that, and of course then I was thinking about it's the movie.
Okay, well, which movie? There's two, and they're both terrible.
The one with the masturbation scene.
Oh, that's like the best movie ever.
No, why would you do why? Anyways, anybody who knows NGE is like, oh yes. Anybody who doesn't is like, huh? You don't want to know.
The urban legend is that everyone hated the ending to the TV show because seriously. And so the director was like, oh yeah? You didn't like that? So he made this movie as an alternate ending. It's like, okay, so you can get the congratulations, or masturbation over a comatose girl. Take your pick.
Yeah. Anyways, that's that happened. That was the thing that happened.
I was just talking about the weird relationships with the mechs.
Oh, yes, of course. You said weird and creepy, and that was where my mind first went, because the relationship with the mechs that never really, I mean, anyways, yes, it's weird. You should definitely read it, though. It's an excellent short story. Highly recommend it. But you also you do whatever you want to do. I'm just saying. But yeah, I think going into 2024, even though we're starting with Dawn of Fire, the preview gave me hope. As again, though, we may have to slip into the Wayback Machine. So,
well,
give us suggestions.
Like maybe. We never know. Because the preview is only I think their hottest titles, right?
Yes, that's true too.
We don't know what other Imperial Astra Militarum books they're going to throw in.
That's true.
Of course, they're probably going to have some more reprints because that's apparently what they do now is with the reprints.
I have a lot of mixed feelings on those reprints. I'm going to be really honest. Mostly it's like, oh, I want that. There's a lot of mixed feelings. Like a lot of mixed feelings on the reprints. I don't want to buy all of them, but I also do want to buy all of them. You know how it goes. Everybody feels me here.
It is true.
You want to take us out, Keri?
Yeah, well, I'm just going to make this nice and short and sweet. So thanks for sticking with us for a whole nother year. We're eager to start next year. I think our next podcast is going to be not the first week of January, but the second week of January. Is that correct?
Yes, that sounds right.
Yeah. So we got to, enjoy your winter break. Enjoy however you're celebrating. Happy Hanukkah. Merry Christmas. Happy Sanguinala, everybody.
Happy Sanguinala.
Don't forget what Sanguinius did for all of you.
He took on Horus?
He died for all of our sins.
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Yes. But he did not. But he did not resurrect on the third day. So different deity there. So anyway.
Well, I mean, maybe with the Sanguinor?
I mean, who knows what the Sanguinor is, right?
Exactly. Just saying, you never know.
I could go on a whole dissertation about that, actually. But anyway, I'm not going to tonight. So good night. See you guys in 2024.
Good night, everyone. Have a great new year.